This is Tim Bryce with my column titled, The After Effects of the 2020 Election. The gymnastics involving the recent counting of the election ballots have been disconcerting to say the least. It has caused high anxiety among Republicans to the point of making many physically sick. Ordinarily, an American presidential election should be simple, transparent, and easy to implement. Despite our technology, though, it has only become more complicated and prone to error and corruption. This is particularly disturbing in the age of the internet and pocket computing. I have personally been voting since 1972, and in that short period of time, I've seen it only get worse, not better. As an old systems man, this is another area where I fail to see how computers have improved productivity. Nonetheless, America has become the laughingstock of the free world simply by its inability to conduct a fair and transparent election. We are now faced with a scandal, the likes of which we have never seen. It is bigger than the 1960 election and bigger than the Kennedy assassination, as it represents the attempted murder of a country, not just an individual, which will haunt us for years to come. Now we are embroiled in a justified legal battle which should not be taken lightly and may very well lead to a surprise ending, something we haven't experienced in a very long time. More on this shortly. Interestingly, I believe there are three areas affected by this nightmare of ballot counting. First, the Republican unity. The outrage over the counting has united the party like I have never seen before. True, millions love their president, but the chaos ensuing from the balloting has incensed Republican voters by insulting their sense of fair play. Republicans always suspected Democrats of voting improprieties, but this latest round will not be left unchecked. This has opened the eyes of Republicans to the next two items. Number two, Democrats. In the eyes of the GOP, the Democrats have gone way beyond the label of the loyal opposition to the party of immoral, illegal behavior. Republicans now understand the Democrats' mantra that all is fair in love and politics, that they will do anything, be it lie, cheat, or defraud, in order to win at all costs. They have seen it in the Congress, mayhem in the streets, and on the campaign trail. In the minds of Republicans, the Democrats can no longer be trusted to do anything honorable, that they represent nothing less than evil. Even former Vice President Joe Biden, who claims he wants to be a unifier, is already drawing up plans should he become president to rescind President Trump's executive orders, such as overturning the removal of business regulations, halting the construction of the Southern Wall and opening the borders, rejoining the Paris Climate Treaty and World Health Organization, killing the Trump tax cuts, reestablishing Iran recognition, and appointing a commission to expand the Supreme Court. So much for unification. The only agenda the former vice president is interested in is the Democrats, not America's. And number three, the news media. Only now are Republicans starting to understand the real power of the press. Prior to this, they thought it was only conservative extremists claiming, "The sky is falling, the sky is falling." Now they know the truth of how untrustworthy the media is, that it is all about money and serving the Democrats. The news media calls President Trump's charges of fraud baseless, even in spite of the many sworn affidavits the president's team has produced. These media people are the same ones who fought for Al Gore's voting rights in the 2000 election, yet balk at supporting the president's rights. Remarkably, they see no inconsistencies in this and continue to push for Biden's election and attack the president's attempts to seek the truth, claiming it is nothing more than sour grapes. Even Fox News has fallen from grace with Republicans who feel betrayed when the network called to Mr. Biden as president-elect. It's not up to the media to call the election. That is what the Electoral College is designed to do. In other words, they exceeded their authority. There is now a massive migration underway to Newsmax and OAN, the One American News Network. This is significant and will hurt Fox, who is now viewed in the same vein as CNN and MSNBC. Don't be surprised when you hear Republicans chant, "Fox sucks, Fox sucks." The decision by Fox to rush to call the election for Biden is one of the biggest bonehead moves made by someone in the media and will cost them dearly. Republicans are also outraged by the behavior of social media giants Facebook and Twitter, who have regularly censored Republican postings, claiming it violates fact checkers. This is also causing an exodus from these services, with people gravitating to MeWe, Parler, LinkedIn, and Codius, specifically intended for conservatives. The stumbling by Fox, Facebook, and Twitter represents a golden opportunity for others who must be careful not to replicate the mistakes of their predecessors. For example, Fox let liberal commentators slip in the back door, and Facebook and Twitter censored postings. These big guns may laugh at the new guys as inconsequential, but over 70 million people voted for President Trump, are mad as hell, and are ready to move elsewhere. Such an exodus could possibly have a crippling effect on these media giants. Should the new kids on the block not learn from these mistakes, they will likely suffer the same consequences. So where is all this heading? Professor Shane Vaughn, a teacher at the First Harvest Church and Biblical Foundations Institute of Waveland, Mississippi, produced a video recently which asks, what happens if President Trump does not concede? In it, he reminds us of an important civics lesson involving some history and Amendment 12 of the Constitution, detailing what would happen if none of the candidates garner enough votes to win the Electoral College. I have researched this and could find no flaw in his argument. Until such time as the states can certify their voting, the Electoral College cannot declare a victor. This is why the president's team is pushing for recounts, particularly from the swing states. The lawsuits may very well reveal voter fraud, which could change the outcome in the states. Nonetheless, investigations can take considerable time, going beyond the date Congress assigns to collect votes from the Electoral College, which is normally the Monday after the second Wednesday in December, meaning December 14th. If neither candidate has sufficient electoral votes, the vote is turned over to the House of Representatives to decide. True, the House is currently in the hands of the Democrats, but this is a state vote only, meaning 50 plus D.C. The president would likely win under such a scenario. This is not without precedence, as it happened in 1800 with John Adams versus Thomas Jefferson, 1824 John Q. Adams versus Andrew Jackson, and 1876 Rutherford B. Hayes versus Samuel Tilden. Conceding defeat represents a surrender in the eyes of the Electoral College, and any hopes of a recount or checking voter fraud is negated. This explains why Hillary Clinton adamantly warned former Vice President Biden not to concede defeat under any circumstance, as she was well aware of this scenario. It also explains why President Trump will not concede defeat, in spite of the urging of the news media, who is also well aware of it, and not the general public. This election is far from over, but to make it to a House vote, the president's team has to effectively demonstrate voter fraud occurred and articulate why recounts are necessary. Trump supporters can help in this regard by organizing demonstrations demanding a clean and transparent election. This election is also recognition of the ruthlessness of a determined enemy, meaning the swamp, consisting of Democrats, the news media, lobbyists, bureaucrats, and rhinos. As an outsider, President Trump has disrupted their plans and fortunes. Bottom line, this is the reason they want to eliminate him. All of this means the Democrats are trapped. They can either acknowledge voter fraud and suffer electoral losses, or take their chances in the House, which they will likely lose. Either way, President Trump wins. When this happens, the Democrats will unleash hell in protest, claiming this is an unfair process, even though it is in the Constitution and has been tested. Fortunately, President Trump has no intention of going gently into that good night. He will certainly not concede the election and see it to the legal end. Thank God for having a president who is not intimidated by the swamp. Friends, keep the faith. This is Tim Bryce in Palm Harbor, Florida. Follow me on the internet at timbryce.com.